So the game is Never Alone. Um, and I think this game was visually beautiful. The artwork and everything involving this game was amazing. There was so much detail within the game, and I think it's something that was important because to really get the story, to really understand the culture and everything behind it, you really needed the full detail to get it. Without it, I don't think you would have really understood the narrative and gotten the cultural background that you needed or would have wanted in playing this game. The interaction in the game was very interesting. Depending on what character you're playing, it could feel very hard to move. When you're playing as the girl, your movements aren't as fluid and quick if you're playing with the fox. And I think this difference in how you play with each character really helps show how different it is between the two. Like playing with the girl, you are in a lot of clothing because it is cold, so your movements are a lot less graceful as it would be as playing the fox, who already has the protection from the snow. And I thought that was an interesting way to put it and help you understand the difference between being a person and being an animal and what it's like to be in the cold and being each one. I thought that the narrative in the game was great. I love the fact that every time you reached an owl, it gave you the opportunity, it told you, hey, you unlock this new story. You can go and listen to the history about what you just experienced. And I think that was important because there's a lot of things that you can't say within a game, but for the game to allow you to pause for a second, understand what you just experienced, why you just experienced it, is a great way not only to tell the culture, but to keep the narrative going and to help you understand what is going on. In a lot of narrative games, you get your own, you get to make your own interpretation of what's happening, and sometimes your interpretation can be wrong. But in this game, if you didn't know that these were spirits or what was going on, you could go back, listen to these mini documentaries, and understand the significance and the story and the culture behind it. This game was pretty easy to play, I would think. Playing alone, I think, is more difficult because you have to play as two characters. So you are helping yourself and working by yourself to get these two players to progress. However, playing with two people can be difficult, but I think it would be a lot easier because you're not trying to control two people at once. You don't have to switch controls, and the feeling, like I was talking about before, of feeling very clunky and heavy versus feeling very light and being able to move faster. You don't have to go in between those two every so often, but playing as two players, one person can experience one person at a time. So the game can be hard and it can be easy depending on how many players you have. You can get very frustrated playing this game if you don't understand what to do. There were moments where I didn't understand how to get a spirit to help. You get kind of lost and confused on how to control them, whether it was the girl who was controlling them, if it was the fox who was controlling them, how to get the spirits down to come and help you. Some of the spirits followed your movement, so if you went too far past them, they were unable to help you anymore. So there is a little bit of frustration as you play, but once you understand the puzzle or whatever it is to continue, you feel very accomplished. I think the game was very engaging, um, especially with the ability to listen to the stories and listen to the documentary about what you're experiencing. Um, it's a it's a great way to really get into the culture, really understand the culture, and I think it did a really great job of helping you understand that. I'm really glad this game got help from people who actually lived and were told these stories and lived this life. I think that if it wasn't, this game would not have been as successful. And like the article was saying, it could have been very westernized, and I appreciate that they went out of their way to get the assistance from people from this ethnic background. If you do not experience the the culture that you're trying to express, whether through game, film, music, etc., you run into the risk of insulting people. And I think this game did a magnificent job of not doing that. It did a magnificent job of talking to the people, taking their actual stories, getting their input, and using it within the game. Without that, this game could have insulted a lot of people because it could have looked a completely different way. But knowing that there was help from people of this background makes me a lot happier to know. I think video games are a great medium that reaches out to many people. If this was a documentary solely, or if it was a book, I don't think it would have reached as many people. Many people like to play games, and sometimes it's not always about the cultural insight of it, it's just about playing the game. And I think this game does a great job of allowing you to play that game that you want to play, but also giving you some history, helping you understand this culture, and giving you a little insight. It was a very creative way to learn about this group. You kind of put yourself in the shoes of these people and understand what it was like to be there as playing as this little girl. Um, Knowing what it's like to deal with the harsh winds, feeling the emotions of your village being destroyed, um, understanding the hardships of moving through the blizzard. I think it really puts you in the shoes of this environment and gives you a lot of insight on the atmosphere. It brings this story that children listen to life. And I think it does do a great way of preserving that. I think that this game represented the culture very well. And I think if any game is to if any game is to represent some culture in some type of way, it should be done this way. Getting the insight from people of that background and not westernizing it, trying to get, not trying to take your own perspective of the game, but actually getting the perspective of the game, of the story, of the narrative from someone who actually experienced it. You cannot talk about something that you have not experienced and think that you can do a good job in explaining it. So, getting that extra feedback before you choose to produce something is very important.